Afternoon, everybody, here at the open forum where we will speak about the AI regulations and get some insight from parliaments. You're not hearing me? Closer. Of course, you have to put your headsets on. This is what the workshop's about, yeah. I'll give you some seconds to do so. And it's non-translation, so it's all English, channel 1. Okay, thank you so much. I'm happy to say that we have a beautiful panel today. Mr. Axel Voss, who is a member of the European Parliament, Ms. Amira Saber, who is a member of the House of Representatives of Egypt, and Mr. Rodrigo Gogni from Uruguay. Before we start, I would like to point out to some of the Interparliamentarian Union activities that have already been done on AI, but also will be happening in future. First of all, in October 2024, the IPU adopted a resolution on the impact of AI on democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. So any parliamentarians in here or people who are working for any parliament, it's a very interesting document to look at the resolution that has been adopted in October 2024 on the impact of AI on democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. And since 2025, the beginning of 2025, February, IPU began to publish a monthly tracker that monitors which parliaments are taking action on AI policy. So that's legislation, committee inquiries, all that tracking is done by the IPU, and it currently already covers 37 parliaments. So we want to know if any parliaments here are missing from that list. If you have activities on AI, you want to be on that tracking list, you can reach out to Mr. Andy Richardson, who is sitting here at the corner in front of me, and he will add you to that list. And in this year, in November 28th to the 30th of November, there will be a core-organized event with the Parliament of Malaysia, UNDP, and the Commonwealth Parliamentarian Association. And that event is the role of Parliament in shaping the future of responsible AI. Soon this will be published, so you can see more about this activity. And of course, we hope that many parliamentarians will attend. And today from the UNDP is also here Ms. Sarah Lister. She is a co-director of Governance, Peace Building and Rule of Law Hub, UNDP, and she will make the closing remarks for today. So she won't be speaking until the end. It's not because I don't want her to speak. It's just because she's going to listen and then conclude at the end. Okay, that's for the normal remarks in the beginning. I would like to ask Mr. Axel Voss, who is a German lawyer, and he's also a politician from the CDU, the Christian Democratic Union of Germany. He's actually been serving as a member of the European Parliament since 2009, and you have been a coordinator of the People's Party group in the Committee of Legal Affairs in 2017. And you have been focusing your work on digital and legal topics, one of them being the shadow rapporteur on the AI Act. What is the current state of play with regard to AI regulation in the European Union?
So thanks a lot, and also thanks for the invitation and having me here. The situation is as follows. We finished the whole AI Act, let's say at the end of last Monday, so in 2024. And now the transition time will pass, so we have an additional part in force at the beginning of August. There is a kind of a discussion going on that this should be postponed and so on. There's a request also from the American or US side. And so this is one thing, but the other thing is also that our companies need probably more time in adapting these. And so there's a discussion going on just of focusing on the high risk AI systems. So that might be postponed, is not decided yet, but the discussion is there. And the situation is, of course, we are concentrating in the AI Act, especially on the high-risk systems. This is not forbidden. This is allowed, but we are asking for more requirements for the deployer and also for the system itself. And of course, then it's quite interesting to see or to notice what is an AI high-risk system. And here we have different options in place. So at first, biometrical identification, we consider this as a kind of an AI high-risk system, critical infrastructure, also education and vocational training. So also the question of employment of workers, management, and also self-employment, the access and enjoyment of essential private services and benefits. Law enforcement also is some of these elements. Migration, asylum, and border control management is considered in a majority in our house for an AI high-risk system, and also administration of justice and democratic processes. Also this one is considered as an AI high-risk system. And this is also something the whole AI Act is delivering some general additional remarks on AI, but focusing more than less on AI high-risk systems. And therefore, then we are trying also to install or to simplify the lives of our businesses in installing so-called sandboxes. I have still the feeling, if I may add this, what we shouldn't do, and this is not to 100% to my satisfaction, that we should have only one interpretation of these provisions of the AI Act. We haven't done this in the data protection regulation, but here in the AI Act, it's extremely important that we have in the European single market only one interpretation of everything, and otherwise we will be confused and the companies will be confused, and this is quite important.
Well, I could agree with you more. And also handling the GDPR, sometimes it's you need to interpret it, so it's very, very important that we have clear definitions. Looking forward on your work on that. Ms. Amira Saber, you are an Egyptian member of the parliament, and you are serving as the Secretary General of the Foreign Relations Committee. Right. Quite impressive. And you are also a national winner of the 2025 Study UK Alumni Awards, the social action category alumnia of the University of Sussex. So it's quite impressive, right? You are a policy leader, you advocate for climate action, also a very important topic, AI government and youth empowerment, while you're leading on foreign relations and social development. We've just heard from Mr. Axel Voss what's happening in the European Union, but Europe ends somewhere, and maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on what's happening in your country on AI and regulation.
Yeah, thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be talking on this panel amid esteemed colleagues. Actually, in Egypt, we already have a strategy for AI, which we have relaunched this year. So there is the boundaries of the national strategy, and I introduced to the parliament the first draft bill on AI governance, which was very luckily endorsed by 60 other Egyptian MPs. The question of to regulate or not to regulate is a very big debate all across the world. And coming to my background on social democracy, I wanted to tackle the ethical part of which, how we can guarantee that the data is well classified. Accordingly, how to hold the provider, the entity, the government, everyone accountable according to the sensitivity of the data. Because if it comes to AI, which is basically functioning on the data and the data providers, the national data becomes a huge asset by itself. So if, for example, the data of a hospital in a far place in Egypt is leaked, who should I held accountable based on this? So what I tried to do based on the EU Act, by the way, because I introduced this bill now a year and a quarter ago, it was March 2024, and what was there in the space back then was the EU Act as the main regulatory bill which is in the space, and we can like frame on and discuss, especially that there was a huge debate between the two big schools of the US and the EU on the regulation, because when you regulate, there is a constraint somehow on technology's advancement, on investing in like crazy innovative ideas, because this might hold you accountable, and accordingly you may pay fines. This will be a financial burden. So how to balance the innovation and incentivize the private sector to invest, because we need the AI investments in healthcare in my country, a big deal. We need it in education, we need it in agriculture. And since our esteemed attendees today, many of which are parliamentarians, I'm not just talking about the legislative part of which, I'm talking about the scrutiny part as well. Because here comes the importance of capacitating parliamentarians. If you capacitate and educate parliamentarians on how they can use their tools to ask the different ministries how they use the AI technologies in the different sectors to advance their work, to benefit as much as we can the people in their country, this matters a lot. So the basic thing which I am concerned with also is raising the awareness of the parliamentarians in my country and across the region. Actually, I'm also part of ABNIG. It's the African Parliamentary Network on Internet Governance, and an excellent African network which tries to raise all the time the knowledge and the exchange of experiences when it comes to data governance. So again, educate and capacitate, this is crucial. And then we discuss how it worked, because what works for Egypt definitely couldn't work for other countries and vice versa, but there are experiences which we could always learn from and develop. So actually right away as well, there is another bill which is under progress. It could be governmental, because in Egypt we have the bills either introduced from the parliamentarians or from the government. So actually, to my knowledge, there is a very big coordination, a very fruitful one between the Ministry of ICT and the Ministry of Judiciary, the ministry which is actually concerned with judiciary, to coordinate between each other. How can they release a draft bill, or how can they introduce a bill on AI governance? So the question of regulation for me, my priorities of which is how we can make it ethical, how we can focus on the sectors that matters most and top, and how can we also incentivize the private sector, because my bill has certain incentives to get the private sector interest to invest in certain sectors, actually, on top of which are the ones which I prioritized during my talk now. So it's a continuous learning process, but very honestly, after we have seen in the Middle East recently and the political consequences of the usage of AI when it is weaponized, because it has been weaponized recently in the war on Gaza, it has weaponized recently in the different wars in the region. This brings attention much more to how important the regulators, the policymakers, everyone who is a decision maker should be very much aware and capacitated on how this develops, touching the lives of thousands of people. There have been lots of reports circulating that when the IDF uses AI on the war in Gaza, this actually has raised the casualties of civilians being dead. So again, the question is political, the question is social, the question is on every aspect of how AI governance today is one of the most things which affects every aspect of our lives, no matter where we are.
Yeah. Well, this is a very warm way of saying that, the effect that AI has on our lives, and especially in your region. And it's very good to hear that you're also there giving advice to other countries in your region and regions. So maybe if there's any parliamentarian here who would like to speak to Amira afterwards and get some advice, please make use of her. And in the meanwhile, I would like to, I hope you can hear me well because and it's my headphones that not working well. Mr. Rodrigo Coño Romero, you are a politician from Uruguay.
From Uruguay.
And you belong to the Partido Nacional, and you represent the department of Salto, right?
Yes.
Yes, and you have been engaged with AI and democracy, and also you have highlighted the importance of getting the parliaments in the debate on AI. You think that's very important. Can you tell me what's happening with the regulation on AI in your country?
Yes. As Uruguay is a very small country in South America, between big country, Argentina and Brazil, we are prioritized to be open to investment and focus in promoting investing in AI. So in Uruguay and in neither country in Latin America have approved a law, an AI law as European Act, but in many countries there are many hundred of drafts. In Uruguay, no. In Uruguay, we prefer have passed a legal framework approved by all parties, which self-mandate us to develop regulation with the participation of all sectors and basis of consensus. Like, I try to avoid to do a bad signal for the investment. So just approve a very, very general legal framework that, well, we started running to all stakeholders, academia, companies, technological companies, and OGNO to develop the process. Very slow. I prefer go slowly. I prefer observe that they happen in Europe and US and maybe a bigger country like Brazil, for example.
Yes, so thank you very much. It's interesting to hear that both of you also highlight the importance of having investment on AI and the dangers that you have on infringing on that investment when you have regulation. Maybe, Axel, you can tell a little bit about what progress has been achieved, and do you see, apart from this, challenges and risks with the AI regulation?
So we have to be aware that the digital future means that everything is more transparent, is circular, and also digital. And this brings us all as a legislator under extreme pressure, because it's a challenge now to adapt the online world to the offline world somehow, or vice versa. And this, of course, what we are connecting with AI, this is the fundament probably of everything else what is coming next. So that's why it is important to have kind of a frame, how far you can go and what might not be part of AI systems. So what is forbidden, what is high risk, and what is low risk, and so on. And so also there is a kind of a fear for shifting power from humans to machines. So that's why also we need to face these. And there's a thin line only between good purposes and bad purposes. So that's why we have the abilities with AI in widening our human abilities on the one hand side and organizational or societal possibilities. The meaning of AI for health and climate change, energy, traffic, administration, security, education, future-orientated research. This is all what we have in mind and what we should go for. And that's why I would say there are a lot of challenges or having advantages also in using AI. On the other hand, of course, we are facing also a lot of risks.
Yeah.
Because of this thin line. There is a risk for democracies, once again, this fear of loss of control. Then we are facing these arguments of surveillance machines, conspiracies, theories. There might be not an exchange of views and arguments any longer, what is then anti-democratic. The manipulation of the public opinions. This is also something fake news, disinformation for destabilizing countries. So hurdles of attacking free and democracies and freedom is lower. Mm-hmm. And so even especially for the young people or youth generation, I would say it's hard to differentiate what is real and what is not real. So they can't trust any longer what they are reading, seeing or hearing. So that's why this is a kind of a risk situation. So in this, you need to bring this somehow in a balancing situation that you are focusing on these advantages, what you can gain out of it, and trying to reduce risks also. And this is what we are trying to do.
Yes, well, thank you, Axon. You just mentioned that for youth, it's hard to know what's real, but maybe I'm not youth anymore. Sometimes also feel it's hard to know what's real and what's not. Mira, can you tell, do you also recognize that? What risks and challenges do you see?
Absolutely. Actually, one of the biggest challenges is deepfake. Because deepfake is not just about how it affects the political space when it comes to elections and electoral campaigns and the manipulation of some political systems. It comes to everyone's life, especially in some closed communities or communities which are still having their own strict cultural frameworks. Imagine a girl who's living in a village with certain cultural norms and she has leaked photographs of her on pornography. Yeah. This might threaten her life directly. Yeah. She could be killed. And actually there are incidents in many countries of girls and women who have suffered or actually have risked their lives to deepfake. So this is affecting everyone's life. You can ruin someone. You can ruin his life, his career, her life, her career, based on deepfake images, deepfake videos. And now, even during the war in Iran, which is just a few days ago, we were doomed. Everyone was doomed with massive amount of media, videos, photos, news, with a very, fine line on how to verify this is true or not. So in today's world, what we thought that it would more of empower us towards knowledge and towards edging this knowledge is actually questioning the amount of feeds which we have. Is it true or not? And this again brings a big important question of how do we verify, and this also applies to education. How do a professor verifies that a certain research is AI generated? or it's done by the personal work of the student. So what is happening now is that I see also developments on many levels when it comes to the models verification and when it comes to the content verification, is it AI generated or not? And this is why I say all the time, educate, 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 capacitate, capacitate, capacitate. For politicians, for policymakers, and for the people, for everyone, because it's a multi-stakeholder thing. Because it's a multi-stakeholder thing with all the parties involved in the development on this process. Everyone's life is touched and is altered, and you can't keep just away from it. However, whatever trials you are exerting in that track, you can't. It's embedded in your life. And the good thing now is that the ethical questions are being raised on every international table. I usually hear about different strategies that are now trying to like regulate and to have a bold framing, which consequently have some legal responsibilities. If you are dealing with a classified data or you are dealing with data that is of high risk, this should have immediately a kind of legal liability. Otherwise, it's a case, because it's already a case which we really need to, it's a case which is touching everyone's life, which we really need to regulate. In my country and in my region, the beautiful thing is that there are thousands, I can say millions of young people who are very enthusiastic to get to learn all about AI. I myself, before developing the draftable, I went through different courses, crash ones, I had interviews, definitely, because you can't regulate something which you don't know.
Really good.
At least
Take an example of what she did. Very good.
you should have a deep dive. Actually, now I can't pass a day without using at least 3 apps of AI, at least in my daily work. And it helps a lot. This is the beautiful face of it. But every coin has another side. And this other side, which we as regulators and decision makers should look at thoroughly. We should maximize the benefits of this technology, and we should also look at the risks. And in countries like mine and other countries, in even a position which is having stressful economic situations, the question of AI is the question of electricity, is the question of infrastructure, is the question of capacity building. So the divide is there. I don't usually like to speak this language, but there is a divide which we all should cross, because this motto, if anyone remember which of the SDGs, leaving no one behind, we just didn't remember well as humans the lesson of COVID, when we stated that there is no one safe until everyone is safe. We just forgot about that. This applies to everything else. It applies to AI. There is no one safe until everyone is safe, and we have a responsibility to make it a safe space as possible, because definitely it's going to be manipulated all the time for different purposes, for different reasons, politically and otherwise. But the real responsibility here is how to make it safe as much as possible. And the good news also is that countries in my region, like Saudi Arabia or UAE or Qatar, they are having a huge potential, like in my country, of young people who are eager to learn, who are eager to get even ahead of the curve of too many competitive setups and environments, which is really appreciated. And I always say that the private sector and the UN agencies have a huge duty to capacitate as much as possible and to get investors to highlight this important tracks which touches everyone's life.
Well, thank you very much. I see there's a question. If you hold on 1 second, sir, because I would like to pose a question to Mr. Rodrigo, and then afterwards I will give the floor to you. So please go ahead.
No.
I was talking about the progress and the challenges and the risks. Maybe.
Yes, we are focusing the develop a national strategy of AI to try to involve all the society in the risk, in the challenge, and very focused in capacity. I the president of the Committee of the Future and of the Parliament, and I try to awareness to the people the risk of the future of the job. So we put focus in prepare. capacity. I have to recognize in many perspective that artificial intelligence have many risks to the job, many changes. So we have to prepare. This is there are no a magic way to face this risk, just capacity. But many people don't know about the risk. So I think it's our duty of the Parliament to awareness, to us to prepare and to facilitate the program, not just to the children, not just to the school, also to the worker. So we are focusing this.
Very good. Thank you very much. The floor, please. Could you state your name and
Yes,
then your question?
my name is Husam El Gamal. I'm private sector from Africa, and I'm a MAG member. I have been MAG member for 4 years. Well, coming back, AI has been swiftly coming, and in fact, it increased a lot the digital gap. We are facing power gap. We are facing computational power gap and ability to buy the processors to do AI. We are facing data access gap. And finally, we are facing scientist capability within the AI that would then build capacity for others as well. Many countries are working on building capacity, which is good. Putting some strategy is good. But let me just answer a few, ask a few questions for you to think about and answer. One thing is, what is the regulatory body that will implement? We don't, in all countries till now, all what we have is telecommunication regulatory body, which is no longer capable of handling digital society regulation. And going to AI and putting regulation for AI, who is going to implement the regulation? So we need, along with building AI regulation, to start thinking about the regulator and how we are going to do it, so to incentivize people to work in AI, but at the same time to put limitation to misuse of AI. Now, second thing is, AI is global, is not local. And same as cybersecurity. Until now, we are facing huge challenge in having international law of cybersecurity. And will be the same for AI. Each country will try to start having its own regulation. But how we are going to implement it globally? Because generally data that will be used, whether fake or right, will be a global one. Yeah. So again, international regulation, how is going to handle this? Yeah. And finally, a lot of countries in the South especially, in addition of lacking the power, they did not implement yet data exchange policy. So we need first to pass this point in order to be able to go to the next one. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I would like to take one more question, please. Yes.
Thank you so much. My name is Ali from Bahrain Shura Council, and I believe that Bahrain have drafted the first and got approved the first AI regulator. Law for regulating the use of AI. We managed to do a framework that it combined a balance, that was the challenge between investors, getting investors, and pushing the innovation, and how to regulate the bad side of the use of the AI. But my question, I see in the neighbors country like Dubai and the Saudi Arabia, like Dubai, maybe they have a ministry of AI there currently. Currently, I think they are implementing also putting an AI member in the parliament. Yeah. But I don't see them that they are regulating the AI. Are we doing a step forward? Are we doing it ahead, or is it we have to slow down in regulating the thing? That's the question. Thank you.
Yeah. And the last question, and then we'll answer them all together, because they are very much alike.
I'll keep it short. Good afternoon. My name is Yasmin Aldouri. I'm a co-founder and consultant at the Responsible Technology Hub. We're actually the first European-led youth-led nonprofit that focuses on bringing the youth voice to responsible technology in the area of policy as well. And my question is focused actually on Mr. Axel Voss. So your municipality is actually my hometown. So I'm really happy to see you. But I had to think a little bit when you said that young people do not really understand or cannot really distinguish between news that might be disinformation or misinformation, or can't distinguish between deep fakes. And I would definitely disagree, specifically on my work with young people. I would even state that young people are way better at actually seeing what is deep fake and what is not. And this shows a little bit the issue that we're generally facing as a young generation. We are always deemed as not knowing specific things when we're actually really good at specific things. So my question to you, specifically for Europe, is how can we bring the reality of youth to parliamentarians, and how can we make sure that the regulation we're actually doing today is future-proof for generations that are coming? Thank you.
Well, very good questions, all of them. I actually would like to give Amira first the floor on the question of what regulatory body who is capable of implementing this, and also because you're from the region, for some very good points made by Bahrain. I mean, and also it's a global problem, right? So how do we make sure that legislation in one country has the same effect in the other, and maybe we don't want to have the same effect? Or how do you go about with this as a parliamentarian?
First, when it comes to the very important question from Mr. Hussam, that was a challenge for me. But in Egypt, actually, we have recently a body which is the Supreme Council on Artificial Intelligence. By law, they didn't have the authority to actually, may I say, hold the governmental entities accountable. This is what I tried to do in my draft bill, to give them the authority to hold every ministry accountable. And in Egypt, it's very much intermingled, because now, as I said, the Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of ICT, they are collaborating together towards another draft bill. And actually, when it comes to every other ministry, was it education, health, whatever, they have also a mandate on advancing their services with AI technologies. So who could be the body? It should be a body which is actually just having the framework, the strategy, and it should be regulating it amongst all the other players, which in my case, I see in Egypt, the Supreme Council on Artificial Intelligence is a good entity to do that. So it depends a lot on the context, it depends a lot on the institutions and on the stage and the development of these institutions according to each and every country. But in that case, that's how I see it in Egypt. For the comment and the question of Honorable Ali, first, congratulations. It's so good music to my ear to hear that another Arab country has walked miles in that way and road, because it's I see a matter of sovereignty. I see a matter which is touching everyone's life. So any parliamentarian trial in that track is something which I very much appreciate. And for this, allow me, Arda, to just intensify a recommendation which I said yesterday at one of the panels, that we need to have in the space a kind of a policy radar for AI. That would be extremely knowledgeable for anyone who is accessing that on the level of policy making, to know what is happening in every region, what is happening in every country, and what do they have in place and what do they have in progress. So if we have such kind of radar, there is a climate policy radar. I wish there would be an AI policy radar. Any of the entities could sponsor that, and it would be of great benefit for parliamentarians and decision makers, so that I know and everyone knows what is happening in other countries. So should we slow down? This is the question, to regulate or not. But let's at least classify the data. This is what I am very much concerned with, because what is not classified couldn't be easily regulated. So we have like broader things to think about when it comes to classification and to have a legal liability based on which. And the other thing is not to slow down at all when it comes to incentivizing the ministries and asking them and doing this scrutinizing job of making every ministry up to using AI for the good of the people in their mandate. So it's like depending on the context, but again, at least the data classification is one crucial thing.
Yeah, you make a very good point on the data classification, and I think that also answers the question. I think it is indeed worrying that there's a lot of legislation still needed on this data exchange, and that's something that needs to be worked upon simultaneously. I would like to ask Mr. Axel Vogt the question, the excellent question: how do we make the reality of youth in the legislation? So how do we connect that? And maybe you can take another question as well, because there's been some online questions, remote questions asked. Can AI help in mitigating the social impact of child abuse and gender-related inequalities? It's kind of a heavy question, but I thought, as you are very much into the AI Act, maybe you can stipulate something on it.
So, thank you. If I may start with my friend from the Rhineland, I do not, over there. So what I mentioned shouldn't be a kind of an insult. It was more, I feel sorrow that you are growing up in a world where you are not can't rely on something what is saying or what you're hearing or what you're reading. So this is, so I grew up in a different century, so that's why I would say it was more easy for me to find trust in some of these elements. But the question, of course, is the now active regulators probably do not have the knowledge in a way in really understanding what's going on. And probably sometimes I have the feeling the politicians might be a bigger problem than the technology, because we are hindering sometimes some elements, and especially if you're dealing with digital laws, then all of a sudden you have a totally different context instead of online laws. So that's why it's difficult. I hope that every parliament has someone dealing with these who is understanding a bit more than the average politician. Also, if we are coming to this point and saying, oh yes, digital is very important and we need to develop something, then probably nobody knows what to do. So that's why, we need to come forward with it. And also to the others, the problem is, so I speak for the European Union, the democratic legislator is too slow for the technology developments. And so we are always behind. That's why we can face this problem a bit more if we are saying we need to reduce the normal behavior of a democratic legislator. So meaning there should be a kind of a solution in place after 3 months, just so. And otherwise we are losing track of this problem, and if we are once ready with a law, then it might be a kind of a different problem already occurring. So we need to be faster, and we need probably not to be detailed all the time. It's more a kind of a frame what we should have with ethical aspects, or a kind of value-orientated frame. And then you might have the time, if everyone knows, if I'm in the frame, everything is okay. If I'm outside the frame, you will face trouble. So, and this might be a kind of a better way forward. Also, I'm asking sometimes myself, shouldn't we, instead of focusing on all these risks and avoiding these, shouldn't we just ask ourselves what we are expecting from AI? This is a more positive approach, probably, in saying what we are expecting, and we do not want to see other things. So that's why it might help in a kind of a better way. So data exchange policy, what was mentioned, or the second question,
Yeah, can it help in mitigating the social impact of child abuse and gender-related inequalities?
yes, so I would say it can.
Yeah.
But of course, you need to have a kind of a plan in mind how to do this. I would say it's not coming as a kind of stereotype behavior. So no, you have to concentrate on it, and also it can help everyone who in mitigating these problems, I would say. But of course, you need to be very careful in what are the conditions at the end and formulating these.
So yeah, basically is what I hear you say, that as a parliament you should avoid being too detailed,
Yes.
but make sure that you have a framework here.
Yeah.
Also, a philosopher comes to mind, Mr. Wittgenstein, who once said, "If you don't know what you're talking about, you shouldn't speak on it." So I hear both of you say, maybe as a parliamentarian, this time you should put a little extra effort in understanding AI, because it's so important. Do you think that the parliaments now, it's a question also from remote, that they are kind of shaping their own AI policies, or are they just looking at what somebody else is proposing? You already said that you took the AI Act as an example.
I depended on too many sources, of which, because it was in the space then as a legislation, I definitely had a deep dive on what the EU Act had.
Yeah. And how about you, Axel? The European Union, they started fresh, or did they look at other examples? There are not many examples in there. You were the first.
Yeah.
They're the first, yeah, but you're the first. You followed them. Okay, so... Right.
I hope not in every detail, because we are sometimes too complicated and too bureaucratic orientated. But in general, yes, it's.
Yeah. So yeah, for the people who are not hearing this, Bahrain just stated that they have used they benchmarked their law against the one of the European Commission. And they made it much more simpler. I think that's what they're trying to, as a framework. Yeah. Right. Okay.
The problem for a kind of a rule of law system is at the end, and this was also mentioned with the first question, how to implement and how to enforce all these. Also, yes, the capacity might not be there. So what we are trying now to do is to build up a so-called AI office, and also give guidelines and what the provisions should mean and how we might come forward. But at the end, also, you need someone in controlling and or enforcing all these. And here we are coming to a problem. You need to have something what is also valid in front of a court. So if this is not possible, then it might be very tricky.
You wanted to add something, Ms. Haber?
Yes, one of the main tools which parliamentarians use is actually the assessment of the legislative impact. It's still missing to a great extent to assess the legislative impact of the AI bills which are already released. So we are also challenged by the impact of these legislations. So, for example, in the EU Act, can I say full mouth 100% that this didn't affect the amount of private sector investments in the fields of high-tech and AI development, and that these companies went to the US, for example? It's not accessible yet. These kind of big questions, it takes time to assess. That's why the question of regulation when it comes to AI is very challenging. You need to put the regulation now, and you need also to assess the impact, and you need to all the time amend and edit according to the advancement of the technologies and according to what is in place. That's why I all the time pro the framework and the legal interventions which are regulating the basic thing, which are more towards the data classification, the rights, the ethics, the broader ones, because when you dive deeply in the details, you get completely doomed, and this is not what the regulator should do.
Right. I see a lot of people nodding in what you're saying about adding the legislation all the time. So there's a question from the floor, and if there's another question, you have to be at the microphone. But first from the lady. Yeah.
Hi, thank you. My name is Meredith. I'm a tech and human rights researcher with the Business and Human Rights Resource Center. And it's really great that we're having this panel now about AI regulation and the importance of it and better understanding what are the impacts, because there are governments, even here, who are touting some very problematic narratives about the dangers of clipping the wings of the potential and everything that AI can do for the benefits of society, while ignoring the mountains of evidence that we have about the actual harms that are taking place now, that need to be mitigated and dealt with now, and justice that needs to happen now. So my question from your seats and your positionality is, what is needed and what hope do you have in terms of pushing back against this wave and these very problematic narratives, as I mentioned, in order to hold the line and keep pushing forward on all of the momentum that had been building about AI regulation for quite some time, and even keeping the EU AI Act strong and making sure that the AI office is strong in its enforcement and having a really well-tuned regulatory approach that can help continue to set more standards moving forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And another question from behind. Your Honourable.
Yeah, hi. Actually, it's not a question, just a comment on amending the law. I believe the more that what we can do is to simplify the law and just to keep it to another body that they are more flexible, because changing anything in the law is going to take a long time, which we cannot cope as with the fast developing of the AI.
Yeah.
So this is the only thing comment.
That was a very good advice, just to keep the framework in the law and make sure that you have lower regulation to be able to be flexible. I'm going to take the last question here. Yes, please.
Thank you for giving me the floor. I'm very happy that I could have catched you, especially on this topic, exploitation of children through the internet and through artificial intelligence. I have just published a new article on Ahram Center for Political and Strategic Studies about this issue, how young people and children are recruited in extremism and radicalization and terrorism through artificial intelligence. And it was surprising, because I started to study and research about this topic, that they are recruiting children through the games, through the gamings. They recruit children through electronic games on the internet. It is available. So I concluded this study with some recommendation. One of the recommendation: look after your children. Don't leave them alone with the screens. Don't do it. This is they isolate them firstly, then they started to promote their own ideas and radicalization approaches. Then we find some young people doing horrible things. So one of the recommendation is awareness is very important. And the legislation, of course. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. And this is really the last question I'm going to take. And I'm going to ask you very brief answers, because Sarah will then wrap up.
Yes. I'm Munir Surur from Bahrain Parliament. Actually, I would like to thank you and thank all of you. Making regulation is very easy, but in the same time difficult, especially in AI, because AI, we are working on open space. And every time we do something, I mean, because we are moving and we're expanding. As Ms. Iman said, we are every time just asking, doing, adapt ourselves. Can we just suggest something to be like a main framework? And we are looking for balancing. We don't look now to make a regulation. We can't fix a regulation, especially with AI. Can we, I mean, according to the experience of Egyptian, can we just mention what the main framework, at least to minimize the risk of the AI? And thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
A very short answer from you, Amida. First, you're good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Axel, maybe you want to comment?
Yes. So thanks for the recommendations. It's good to hear. To Meredith, yes, so keeping the AI Act strong. This is what we are trying to do, but we are in a kind of a trap. We are seeing AI and AI systems and generative AI is creating a lot of wealth, and so we are lagging behind everywhere except 2 big regions, and this is why we need to support these, but on the other hand also trying to keep very strong limits and framework.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all. I would like to give the floor to Ms. Sarah Lister, who will give us her closing remarks.
Thank you very much. And as we conclude this open forum on AI regulation, I'd like to start by thanking, first of all the panelists, the participants, the moderator in person and online for all your insights and the questions and the commitment to inclusive rights-based governance of artificial intelligence. As a personal reflection, I am delighted that there is such a well-attended session focusing on the role of parliaments. In my experience, too often in digitalization discussions, national governance authorities and processes have been forgotten and have been brought too late to the processes. So today's discussion has highlighted the practical role of parliaments in ensuring that AI systems are aligned with human rights and normative principles, and to ensure that no one is left behind, as the colleague from Egypt said. We have heard that parliaments are on the front lines of some of the most pressing policy issues of our time. How to protect citizens and all people while enabling innovation. And that has been a core theme that has run through our discussion this afternoon. It was raised by the colleague from Egypt and from Uruguay and from the floor. And then how do we ensure oversight in a rapidly evolving technological landscape? What type of regulatory entities do you need? How do you create governance frameworks that are grounded in human rights? And we have heard that to ensure the benefits of AI reach everyone, we must invest in the development, governance, and support of responsible and ethical AI, as well as in countries' capacities to build safe, secure, and trustworthy AI systems. Parliaments are key in governing the use of global technologies and ensuring that these truly serve their public's interests and support the achievements of the SDGs. We have heard that no single actor can shape the governance of AI alone. Effective regulation demands a multi-stakeholder approach, bringing together parliaments, executive branches, civil society, private sector, and technical communities. And Uruguay talked about the consensus-based approach that takes place there. And we heard from the floor and then in response about the importance of bringing youth voices to the discussions, and have asked the question, how can we effectively ensure that multi-stakeholder, including young people's approach to this issue? The report of the Secretary General's high-level advisory body on AI and the Global Digital Compact that was signed on the margins of the General Assembly last year notes that AI governance requires addressing existing gaps in representation, coordination, and implementation. Parliaments are key actors in ensuring that. At UNDP, we see AI not only as a technological issue, but as a governance one. We support countries with our partners in navigating both the governance of digitalization and digitalization for governance. And we support countries to develop their potential to transform their public services, build a more open and inclusive public sphere, and enhance democratic processes and institutions. We co-host with IPU an expert group on parliaments and digital policy to try to bring together some of these elements that people have asked for in terms of sharing experiences. And other international organizations join that expert group to help ensure that we pull together. I see that my time has passed, so I would just say once again, thank you very much for being a part of this timely and important conversation. A special thanks to the Interparliamentary Union for their partnership in making this event possible, and to the IGF for hosting us. Thank you very much.